It's a sunny Misano. We are almost ready to go racing for our first Fanatec GT2 European Series race of the weekend. The grid formed for this morning in the qualifying session, and another intriguing race in prospect, especially as this is going to be getting underway at round about 20 past towards 7:30 in the evening local time. Temperatures dropping, although the sun is still shining, and it's a very hot sun, he says, as it blazes through his window. But then, of course, inevitably, the light is going to fade. So the drivers, and they've had this before, whether it's been here or at Paul Ricard, will be going into the dusk, and it's another facet of the races here. David Anderson trackside, Antonio Rankin down on the grid. The grid is forming based on Q1, and it's going to be the car of Philippe Pret that is on pole position. That means it's the Maserati that is going to be on pole, and Philippe Pret will certainly be a man to watch in this race. Very, very quick indeed. He took a class win at Paul Ricard when we had the first event of the championship season, and Philippe Pret will come to the grid having outpaced Gilles Vannelet, who will start alongside him. This is Gilles Vannelet's Mercedes making its way to the grid, and there the leading car, the safety car, poised at the front. It will be, of course, a rolling start. It is a 50-minute race, and the pit window between 20 and 30 minutes. Now, the GT2 European Series will factor in your results from previous races in order to come up with to call them penalties is perhaps a little unfair, compensation times for the race in prospect, and that means that the cars get 10, 7 and 5 seconds, and it means that we will have cars with slightly longer pit stops to serve over and above of the mandatory stop, which is 128 seconds for everybody, and then you put these extra compensation times in place. So Philippe Pret has actually 14 seconds to serve. Vannelet and Bobelik alongside have 7, and Alexandre Leroy has 7 in the AM category. And in Pro-Am, 89 of Jan Krabach and this week Eric Yanis, that has 10 seconds. 7 for 812, which is the Martin Koch, Reinhard Koffler KTM, and 5 for Thomas Andersson and Simon Birch. So in other words, 6 cars, all with slightly longer pit stops to serve. So the grid is formed. The safety car has just gone blasting away. The leading car will control the formation lap. 4 manufacturers on the grid: KTM, Maserati, Mercedes, AMG and Audi, after we had the first Maserati win at Paul Ricard. And the dominance of Maserati continues, because we had 2 pole positions going the way of Carlo Tamborini and Leonardo Guarini. Pole for this race to Philippe Pret, so all Maserati. And I think I'm right in saying that the grid for race 2 will have a Maserati on pole position as well. We've got Philippe Pret's son Louis racing within the Fanatec GT races this weekend. And as the drivers get ready to go racing, we can head to the grid. Antonia Rankin is down there. She's found the Jan Krabach KTM on the 5th row.
Eric, you had an excellent start to the season in Paul Ricard with a win and a podium, but you're starting a bit further back today. How are you going to try and push a bit further forward?
We'll try to maximize actually the end of the race, because I think this is our strongest part. Basically, the others are struggling with the tires the most at the end of the race. So we'll try to actually be in a contact at the first part with the pack, and then maximize the end of the race, and that's the key of our strategy.
Okay, so strategy is your probably main strength then?
Exactly, because we are a bit off pace this weekend. We have to be honest. We didn't find the optimum setup. We already changed something on the car, so hopefully we're gonna gain some time on the track, and for tomorrow also we need to do something different, because we still need to improve a lot. And yeah, I hope Jan will do a good start, that I can still join the race and gain some places.
Of course, well, let's hope that the tactics pay off. Thank you. Best of luck.
Eric Jan is guesting this weekend. He wasn't at Paul Ricard. The car was. Jan Krabach shared it with Mato Homolo up there, and they had a win. but Hommel are not racing this weekend. Eric Yanis then steps in. Just to go back to those pit stop compensation times, if you're wondering why some are higher than others, it's a different scale if you're a solo driver. And Philippe Pret, as a soloist, cops 14 seconds rather than just the 10 that the two-driver entry would. And because there's a benefit for being a soloist. You always know what the car is like and what the track is like. It takes you less time after the pit stops to get dialed in than it would a driver fresh into the car. So that's why it's a slightly longer time. Philippe Pret there on pole position then, and the very experienced Ferrari Asia-Pacific champion twice over. Has also raced Porsches. He's raced in the French GT and in Asian Le Mans. And alongside him will be Gilles Vannelet in number 87 Mercedes, who seems to have been racing for a long, long time. There is the Acodis ASP run Mercedes. Gilles Vannelet regular in French GT, in the FIA GT3 European Championship, in GT World Challenge, in GT4, loyal to GT racing for a long, long time, although memory serves, he did have a spell in Renault Clios decades ago. Third on the grid, Leonardo Guarini will go first, former Lamborghini Super Trofeo racer before coming into GT2. He also raced in the early days of what was then called the Blancpain Endurance Series. He drove in the Gentleman Trophy, which morphed into the AM Cup, the Bronze Cup, and he will have Carlo Tamborini as his co-driver. And then fourth on the grid, Alexandre Leroy, who is an occasional racer in historic events, as well as Carrera Cup France, and came into the championship last year. 1 minute board shown then, the grid now being cleared. And so the leading car in a moment on instruction will accelerate away, and the field will then follow suit, ready for the rolling start. And a 50-minute race. Mandatory pit stops and plenty of drama, no doubt, as the grid takes shape. At the very back is the Audi, Michael Doppelmayr starting, but he will give way to the very quick and very experienced Pierre Caffer. We'll go through the grid in a moment, but there's an interesting mix across pretty much all of the entries. Relatively few soloists. And two-driver entries always add a little bit more because you've got that contrast of pace between the two, seeing who's the faster. Right, formation lap underway then. And let's have a look at the grid with Philippe Pret on pole position and Gilles Vannelet lining up on the outside of the front row. The second row, Leonardo Guarini, and his Maserati has the similar car for TFT Racing of Alexandre Leroy alongside him. Then it is the best of the KTMs. Martin Koch goes first in 8.12, and Mauro Ricci, sharing this week with Ludovic Badet, starts sixth. Seventh on the grid is Dominic Olbert in the Razun Morvan Racing KTM, and on his outside is Pascal Gibon ahead of Jan Kravec, last year's AM champ, now in Pro-Am, and Thomas Anderson is alongside. Stefan Perrin has alongside him Sedi Samini, Eric De Donker and Hubert Trunkenpolt share the penultimate row, and Michael Doppelmayr will go from the back in the LP Racing Audi, but I suspect that if it stays on the lead lap, Pierre Caffer is going to hustle it up the order when he gets on board. So they're the cars now working their way down to turn 8. They'll get themselves towards the end of the lap in that side-by-side formation. Lovely shot down from the drone there as you look at turn 10. That's in the foreground. And then this fast section that takes you round the back of the final corner. And you keep on going. It's deceptive, that element, because it goes on and on and on, and you turn right and right and right again. Gilles Vannelet trying to get the warmth in the tyres so you can attack Philippe Pret off the line. Gilles Vannelet in the Acodis ASP Mercedes makes his way then up towards the final couple of corners, then to get into formation. And then we'll be in business for 50 minutes of racing. Maserati having had great success at Paul Ricard, and Gilles Vannelet's Mercedes the nearest opposition in qualifying. Leonardo Guarini starting third on the grid. Now, he might be a dark horse in all of this because Guarini went well in qualifying, but every time he was going well enough to be on pole, he tripped over the track limits, therefore was forced to lose the lap, and he was really unable to recover from that. So we'll need to see how he goes here, but in terms of pure pace, Leonardo Guarini ought to be able to get up with them. So the field in order, wait for the Audi at the back of the grid to come into shot. There it is, Audi, one of the first brands to make cars for GT2, and now just the one on the grid. So KTM's and now Maseratis have certainly caught on. There are more of those than the others. Mercedes, that was another second-year arrival at the GT2 ball, has made a good fist of building cars too for customers. And Philippe Pret then in number 2 in the setting sun accelerates up towards the line. The lights on red on the gantry. They will change in a moment to get Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli underway, and a great start by Pret. But Guarini goes to the inside line then as they make the run down towards turn 1, and contact between the two. A big dive there between Vanelay in the Mercedes and Pret in the Maserati. Vanelay clatters his way by, but that's going to get looked at surely. Philippe Pret then down to second, and Gilles Vanelay makes that move, and a big dive also on the inside of Alexandre Leroy there by the Dominic Olbert driven KTM, so he gains 4th place as the leaders come onto the back straight for the first time. The drone chasing hard but loses out there to Mauro Ricci, who just goes underneath the drone. So it is Vanelay leading, second is Pret, third is Guarini. But that start, I can imagine a very disappointed Philippe Pret will want that looked at, because Gilles Vanelay certainly made contact with him and elbowed his way through. However, now that he is ahead, that Mercedes is escaping up the road. Vanelay knowing that he needed to strike very early in this race. That's exactly what he did. Martin Koch has dropped back a little bit, hasn't he, in the 812 KTM. Some drivers being less confident than others on cold tyres. But Gilles Vanelay, it is, leading the way. And look at the gap he's pulled already over Philippe Pret. Guarini third, and then in 4th place, as the field streams through, was Alexandre Leroy off the grid, but he dropped back on the opening couple of corners, so that brings Dominic Olbert up a row from 6th to 4th, and Martin Koch, though, the green KTM, is the man trying to now get himself back to the races, as it were, because he's lost out badly on this first lap, and that is the Jan Krabec KTM grinding to a halt. So Jan Krabec, race winner at Paul Ricard, slow coming off turn 14, and that car looking as though it has got a big problem and is going no further. So Jan Krabec out of the race, seemingly. There, number 90, Dominic Olbert, up the inside of Leonardo Guarini, but he can't find a way by. And as the cars now sprint along to turn 4, you can see that Guarini is under attack. Dominic Olbert going nicely here in that red and white KTM. But Gilles Vanelay led at the end of lap 1 by 11/10 of a second. And I think now Philippe Pret, possibly because his dander is up, as it were, but also because the tyres are getting warmer, he is going after him, and he's fighting back as they make that run down towards turn 8. Olbert in 4th place now. And that leading quartet getting away a little bit. Alexandre Leroy was 5th over the line, 6th was Ricci, 7th was Koch, 8th was Perrin, 9th was Gibon, 10th was Anderson, 11th was Sarmini, 12th Eric De Donker, and then it was Trunkenpolt, Stoppelmeier, and Jan Krabec did not get to the line, and the safety car deployed. So Jan Krabec's car there is stranded on the track. They've given him time to do a power cycle, but it has not worked. And so we need to get that car off the track, and to do it, the safety car is deployed. So Gilles Vanelay's advantage, such as it was, will diminish. Won't be able to build that lead for another lap or two, as the field now slowly makes its way down to turn 14. And then once Krabec's car is out of the way, which shouldn't take long because it's nearly at pit in. He tried to limp it as far as he could. Then we'll be back in business. So over the line comes Gilles Vanelay. He sees the yellow lights flashing and thinks, ugh, I can't press on, I can't build my gap. But Philippe Pret behind him. We've not had anything on the timing screen about the incident at the first corner, but this was it. Gilles Vanelay saw a gap, went up the inside, and the contact was just as they turned into the corner, just out of that shot. This is it from another angle. It was a definite hip and shoulder, but Gilles Vanelay had pretty much committed to the inside. Philippe Pret then unsettled by all of that, but he was lucky to hang on to second place. Now, Race control haven't said they're looking at it. Not, as far as I'm aware, had a team asking anything about it. This was how Vanderlei saw it. Went up the inside, and Pret had his nose ahead, but there wasn't really anywhere that Vanderlei could go. He couldn't disappear, so contact between the two, but he came out ahead. Well, if anything comes of it, well, we'll soon know. Right, so we're on lap 3. Cars turning their way now to turn 8. Lights still on the safety car, of course, when they go out. We know that's the indication that we will be racing at the end of the lap. And so down they come out of turn 8. That's Michael Doppelmayr. This is good news for Doppelmayr, this safety car. I know that the field will stretch again on the restart, but it means that he's got fewer laps to have to worry about race pace, and that helps Pierre Caffer's challenge in the second stint. That car, when Caffer gets on board, is normally very quick indeed. So through they turn, lap 3 of our first Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli race of the weekend. Safety car in this lap, so race director Joël Dorval is happy to, with the track clear, get things back underway. The lights out atop the safety car. There's confirmation, safety car in. And Gilles Vanderlei will control the restart. I wonder whether Philippe Pret might be as ruthless to Vanderlei as Gilles was to Philippe first time around. Green flag ready, 44 minutes and change on the clock. We're back racing in GT2. Over the line goes Vanderlei, over the line goes Pret, and the margin as they restart is 9/10 of a second, so a good restart by Gilles Vanderlei. Out of turn 1 they turn. That's the right-hander, left at 2, right at 3. And 888, Jörg Wiebahn and Stefan Perrin's car. Stefan Perrin at the wheel of it must give back 1 position. So I think he may have got ahead of Gibbon when he shouldn't, and so the team being told to tell the driver to give back the place, and that would put Perrin down to 9th again behind Pascal Gibbon. Race leaders coming towards us then. So we've had 7 minutes. After 20 we get the pit window opening, and there is, well, not sure whether Perrin's giving it back or whether he's being overtaken in a proper battle, but Gibbon is ahead. So for the moment at least, 53 does get the place back, and Stefan Perrin will have to try and fight his way back ahead once again as Martin Koch gets on with the programme. He's moved himself up now ahead of Mauro Ricci to 6th. There is Gibbon coming back under attack from Perrin. The two Mercedes out of different stables continue their battle, and Gilles Vanderlei leads the pack here, look, as they come down towards turn 11. There is aboard 98, Eric de Doncker, the very experienced Belgian driver, who was one of the early names to conjure with in the GT4 category a long, long time ago, but also ran the Fanatec Ford GT program for a time in GT3. There, number 90, Dominic Olbert, then on the back of Leonardo Guarini, who surprisingly is not actually staying on the tail of Philippe Pret at the moment as they go by. But look, Pret now closer to Vanderlei. He didn't like being mugged at the start, and he's going to get that lead back come what may, you get the feeling. Philippe Pret then from pole position in 2nd place, comes through, but Vanderlei defends as they accelerate now out of turn 3. There's a gap on the inside, but Pret not really close enough to stick his nose up the inside there. So for the moment at least, that Mercedes AMG hangs on to the lead. Guarini 3rd, Olbert 4th, Alexandre Leroy 5th, and yeah, Martin Koch 6th. Although that car, of course, has to serve a slightly longer pit stop. The really bad news, though, of course, for Jan Krabach out of the race, having come here very nicely placed within the championship after the good results that he had at Paul Ricard. So Jan Krabach will give up his Pro-Am championship lead. It was only 4 points over Koffler and Koch, but that will have disappeared potentially come the end of this first 50-minute race of the weekend. There is Dominic Olbert coming out of turn 10 onto the back straight, and is Gilles Vanderlei being able to up the pace again. He's certainly getting away a little, isn't he, from Philippe Pret. The rest of the field streams through, and there is number 16, the KTM of Seti Sarmini, Eric de Donker's Mercedes behind, and for the race lead, Philippe Pret, fastest lap of the race last time through, still pushing. There's Vanderlei ahead of him as they come now down towards turn 16 once again. Philippe Pret up the curb, and he was doing that a lot in qualifying, trying to use as much of the width of the road as he can. They're all doing it, or most of them are doing it, because if you go the left wheels all the way over the curb, that means you've got a bigger arc to sweep through turn 1. Vanderlei under attack, though, up towards turn 4 here. Philippe Pret right behind him. So it is Mercedes from Maserati, Leonardo Guarini in 3rd place, and Dominic Albert close, but not yet really being able to think about making a move against Guarini. He might be saving himself, just staying in that pack, and then he can let his co-driver do the hard yards after the pit stops once Dennis Liebel has taken over that car. A look on the inside by Pret doesn't work, but that's not to say that he isn't going to be able to try elsewhere now, because he served intent and he's got the pace, hasn't he? So Gilles Vanderlei has to defend, but all of a sudden Guarini is up with them, because now that Philippe Pret tried to move and it didn't work, he's lost a bit of time, and that plays into the hands of Leonardo Guarini as they come down towards turn 11 once again. The number of track limit warnings are increasing all the time now. Philippe Pret, I think he's safe, but we've had quite a few offered up to Thomas Anderson. We've had a few also to Dominic Albert. Anderson, in fact, has pitted, so his KTM that was in trouble a little bit in qualifying has also now had to come to the pit road and has just rejoined. It's just going past my window, ready to get back into the race. So problems for number 80 KTM. Over the line goes Vanderlei. And half a second the margin that time around, that's all. Pret behind him, and the gap is down. And then Leonardo Guarini in 3rd place has just done the fastest lap of the race. So number 1, Maserati, there it is, the blue and yellow car, back in contention. I think what he's really been able to do is shake off Dominic Albert. Into the traffic they come. Thomas Anderson needs to be negotiated by 1, by 2, by 3, and they've all now cleared him. But you can see that Pret is much, much closer to the leader, and definitely there, Guarini getting away from Dominic Albert in 4th place. So that releases him to go after Philippe Pret. That means that the battle is back on for seconds. It's going to be 3 for the lead as well before long, because if he's on the tail of Pret and Pret's on the tail of Vanderlei, then the 3 leading cars are going to be together. Pret using a lot of curb, coming out of turn 8 up the hill, over that little climb to turn 9 and 10. So the 3 leaders make the run down that back straight, having to cope all the while, of course, with a setting sun. The track temperature 24 degrees, the ambient is 19, so it's still a very, very warm evening as the cars dive down through turn 11 once more. Through that kink to the tighter corner of 12, and Vanderlei up the curb, sorts himself out. Philippe Pret right there behind him. Guarini 3rd, still leading his class because he's in the Pro-Am, whereas the 2 ahead are in the Am category. Vanderlei and Bobelik and Pret, all very successful, very experienced, but categorised as AMs. And Leonardo Guarini with Carlo Tamborini, the young gun Italian, goes into the Pro-Am category. Over the line they go once more then. That now puts 7 laps in the book. And 0.3 of a second is the margin. There, Dominic Albert 4th. He's got Alexander Leroy right up behind him. So that's another quick Maserati that is really proving, a bit like the MC12 was when it came into GT racing, what, 20 years ago, to be very good indeed. Wide though goes Pret, mistake at turn 4, and that possibly gives Guarini a chance to challenge, although having said that, Pret recovers really nicely and doesn't lose that much time relative to the race leading Gilles Vanderlei. Through they come again now. Out of turn 8, Vanderlei wider, but then Pret sort of follows that same line to an extent and also uses quite a lot of the racetrack. So Jan Krabec, we've lost from the race. Michael Doppelmayr in last place. He's on the lead lap, but he's just rather distant. He's gone across the line now, so goes through having broken the beam, and we await the leaders to turn 11 yet again. Vanderlei can't shake off Pret, and Pret can't shake off his teammate of Leonardo Guarini, those 2 LP racing cars. 2nd and 3rd. Luca Piri's team chasing after the entry from Jerome Policon's squad. There it is, the Ecodis ASP Mercedes. Once more out of turn 14 they go. And a look on the inside by Pret, but it comes to nothing. Gilles Vanderlei able to fend him off. It's not that often that people make a real move on the inside at turn 16, so more in hope than in anticipation that from Philippe Pret. But what he is doing now is serving intent to Vanderlei and also trying to distract him all the while. He's moving around in the mirrors. He's creating a little bit of distraction for Vanderlei, hoping he can force a mistake. What he doesn't really want to have to do is wait until the pit stops, because he's going to lose time. He's going to have to serve an extra 7 seconds, so he needs to be ahead and pulling away. The Gorini and Tamborini car is the best place here because it doesn't have to serve any extra time in the pits. But 14 seconds as a soloist for Philippe Pret means he really does need a safety car, but in the second stint, not the first one, which is when we've had it. Down to turn 8 they come, about 5.5 minutes before that window opens. Through they turn again. And now the run up towards turns 9 and 10. Just like GT3, just like GT4, GT2 cars, all with their distinctive engine note, they all make a great sound. And the Maseratis stream by. There's the gap back to 4th place, Dominic Albert in the KTM, who in turn is ahead of Alexandre Loire and Martin Koch, chipping away to try to get back into the mix. Next car through, Mauro Ricci. There is the delayed Thomas Anderson KTM running ahead of Pascal Gibon, but it's a lap down, the number 80 KTM, as again Pret thinks about a move at the inside at turn 16, but then thinks better of it. Ain't going to work, and Vanderlei has been around the block so often he's not going to fall for a cheeky trick like that. So Vanderlei leads with 4.5 minutes to the window, down towards turn 1 yet again. Go right, then flick left, and then right again. And you can see how Pret closes right up in the mid part of the S's there. Gilles Vanderlei a little bit wide out of 3. Pret thought about a move on the inside going into turn 4. He's got good speed through there, a little bit closer to the Mercedes. Through the second part at turn 5, out of 6 the left-hander, and now the straight. The speed building through that gradual turn 7 that in turn brings you to turn 8. And Pret with 2 wheels up the curb, not able to really do anything about making a move there. So he's in the tracks, but he's not able to be on the attack because he wasn't close enough at that part of the racetrack. And what he has done is drop away slightly into the clutches of Gorini. There on the inside line goes Pascal Gibon. That puts him through, not gaining a place, but giving him track position over the lapped KTM of Thomas Anderson. So he's moved through. And behind, still pressing on, the other Mercedes, you've got in 888 Stéphane Perrin, who will give way to Jörg Wiebahn in about 3 minutes and change his time, because we're getting closer all the while to that pit window opening, as through there goes Vanderlei. Still Pret running behind him, bouncing their way over the curb, and now through the left-hander up at turn 16. So Vanderlei not escaping, but he's hanging onto that race lead, not making mistakes, keeping hold of the advantage, and unlike Pret, doesn't put the car up on the curb, maybe feeling that it's not advisable to give the tyres any more abuse than they need. He comes out of turn 3 now with that Maserati still chasing him. The gap last time, 0.4 of a second, and actually Vanderlei did the fastest lap last lap through, but Pret now does commit to the inside line, way up the curb on the inside line. We've bought in the room and he's gone through. Philippe Pret, new race leader, and Gilles Vanderlei then, having just done the fastest lap, unable to repel Philippe Pret's challenge, and now Pret's going to try and pull 7 seconds over that car, because that's the time difference to be served on the pit stops. Vanderlei here, hard at work. Now he's got to defend from Gorini, but he also wants to go after the leader. And do we have another KTM with a problem? Looked as though there was a punctured tyre. There is, in the background. And that is either Dominic Albert's car or Thomas Anderson in strife once again. Is it 80 or 90? It's 90, so out of 4th place, Dominic Albert with a puncture. So that car limps to the pit lane, but it's happened really towards the start of the lap, so the worst possible place. Vanderlei then, surrounded by Maserati, 1 fore, 1 aft, and this Mercedes sandwich in the Maserati bread coming towards turn 15. Philippe Pret, now the race leader, trying to build that gap. They will have 1 lap before the window opens. Philippe Pret, remember, does the whole distance on his own, so he can pit almost when he wants, whereas Vanderlei and Gorini have a co-driver to hand over to. Vanderlei's probably a bit quicker than Jean-Luc Bobelic. Carlo Tamborini probably quicker than incumbent Leonardo Gorini, so the fascination of who pits when will be coming up shortly. Through they turn once more, and Philippe Pret now trying to get away, trying to build that lead over the Mercedes of Gilles Vannelet, and he is just edging clear, isn't he, at the moment? Gorini hard at work, and Philippe Pret edging away. Goes now up through turn 8. There's traffic up the road, but it's the limping KTM, I think I'm right in saying, of Dominic Olbert. No, it is Michael Doppelmayr who's going very slowly. So Doppelmayr drops off the lead lap. That's bad news for Pierre Caffer. So Michael Doppelmayr slow. Thought for a moment the car had a problem, but it's just a slow lap, I'm afraid, from the German driver. There he is. Doppelmayr 13th, and the pit window is now open. Doppelmayr will be in. He almost got away with that because he'll be in early to give way to Pierre Caffer. The problem is he's dropped off the lead lap in so doing. So there is Gorini in, Pret stays out, Vannelet stays out, so this could well win the race for Gorini. No extra time to serve in the pits, and they're going to maximise the time available to Carlo Tamborini here. 29 minutes on the clock. Down the pit road they come. So number 1, Leonardo Gorini, for the moment, drops down the order. Also in is Dominic Olbert to have that punctured tyre changed. The KTM's up and forward bodywork there evident. So Olbert is in the window now, so he's able to give way to Dennis Liebel. And Pret and Vannelet, that margin stretching. Pret this time, absolute best in the first sector. He's getting away, look, from Gilles Vannelet. And more of them now coming in to get the regulation stop out of the way. If you're the slower driver, it makes sense to be in early and get the quickest guy in, or the quicker guy in, for the maximum amount of time. Reinhard Koffler there takes over 8-1-2. Down goes the bodywork. It's in place. The mechanics make sure of that. And very shortly, the MZR Motorsport Zentrum Ried team will fire him back down the pit lane. Dennis Liebel getting strapped into number 90, Simon Birch into 80 behind, and Philippe Pret is going to do another lap. So is Vannelet, and you can see now how it's a different sort of hue around the Misano circuit. The sun starts to set. It's 7:45. The GT3 race blasts into life at 9 o'clock, when it will be pretty much dark. Certainly be dark by the end of it, as here Carlo Tamborini gets away. Makes that run down the pit lane, goes past the Jörg Wiebahn Mercedes that Jörg will blast down the pit road in very shortly. So there is Philippe Pret. Last time around, he was 1.2 seconds to the good over Gilles Vannelet. And regulation stops done. Rather sideways, Loris Hezemans gets away, and that forces the KTM just to lift a little bit. But in fairness, I don't think Simon Birch, seeing that he's 2 laps down, is going to be massively delayed by that. Philippe Pret, though, staying out. So as yet, not thinking about that pit stop. As I say, it doesn't really matter when he does it. Arguably, later in the window is better because the pit lane is going to be emptier. It's going to be clearer. So there, Vannelet, who will give way to Jean-Luc Beaumelic, still pushing on. He's done on this lap a personal and an absolute best in sectors, so Vannelet certainly not giving up. Setting sun right in his eyes as he goes through turn 14, then flicks behind the grandstand out of view. Up towards the end of the lap he comes. So Gilles Vannelet comes through turn 15, turn 16, another lap stays out for. Philippe Pret's done the fastest lap. He's done a 1:36.6 as he comes over the line. Vannelet behind him. Delay of getting times up on the screen at the moment, but that lap is the best of the race. So Gilles Vannelet, even though he's only in second place, able to respond and goes a little bit faster that lap through. Real cat and mouse this between the two of them. They're going through. Is the KTM. So we've got the Klaus Angerhofer 16 in 10th and 17 of Lara Kreimer, the sister car, in 11th place. And Pierre Caffer, having taken over from Michael Doppelmayr, is now, gosh, 3 laps down. There is Philippe Pret through on the inside to go ahead of Lara Kreimer. So the majority of the stops have been cycled through, other than Pret and Vanelay, who we're looking at, and then Leroy and Gibbon as well in 4th place. Absolute best, middle sector, number 98 Mercedes, Loris Hesselman. So Hesselman's absolutely on a mission right now. They're going through. Gilles Vanelay still hustling on. Reinhard Koffler now doing an absolute best in the 1st sector. So the majority of cars now getting the quicker drivers in, and the lap times that they are doing will be better than the lap times that these are doing, Pret and Vanelay, who are getting a little bit tired towards the end of their stint, although Pret's got to go solo right to the very end, of course. Over the line he goes once more. So still not for coming in, is he? They make that run now onto turn 4. Through goes 87. That is Gilles Vanelay then, who last time around was 0.6 of a second back and lapped a 10th quicker. New fastest lap of the race, Carlo Tamborini, number 1, Maserati. That car really ought to be the race winner here because it was in the leading battle early on and does not have to serve any extra time in the pits, whereas Pret will have to serve 14 seconds and the sideways Mercedes behind the Vanelay an extra 7. So it really is advantage Maserati number 1. Up towards turn 10 they come. Philippe Pret's longer pit stop compensation time because he's a solo driver. And as they come now down from turn 10 towards us, still Maserati in the lead, but the lights piercing the dusk. Quite a few of these drivers will have raced in long-distance endurance races and had that change of the light, but for some it'll be a whole new experience. They got a little bit of it yesterday in the qualifying, in the pre-qualifying session. So Gilles Vanelay up towards the line, and Philippe Pret stays ahead of him. Vanelay, interestingly, still not for coming in. That's the quickest car in the race right now. Number 1, Carlo Tamborini. His lap is a 1:35.9, which is about a second quicker than Vanelay, as an example. And with Alexandre Leroy in the pits, he is going to be 4th on the road now, Carlo Tamborini, but in real terms, the race leader. So Tamborini goes by, and lapping in the 1:35, so 1:35.7, continuing to be quicker than the top 2 on the track in the race. So the Maserati up towards turn 4 yet again. Only 2.5 minutes of the window to go. Alexandre Leroy out of the car, as the regulations dictate for the pit stops. Then he'll get back in. He's strapped into the car again, and then he can go. So driver out, driver in equates to a driver swap. Leroy also having to serve that slightly longer pit stop compensation by dint of being a soloist, as Philippe Pret will have to do. Pierre Caffer, incidentally, now is the man with the best first sector time to his name. And again, Gilles Vanelay closes right up under braking, going up towards turn 14. In comes the race leader. So Gilles Vanelay, depending on if he stays out, doesn't. He comes in as well and closes right up as they get to the speed limit mark, the 50k board. So there, the lollipop is waved to attract the attention of Gilles Vanelay. He knows where he's got to stop. There for LP Racing comes Philippe Pret. Goes past Alexandre Leroy, who is still serving his pit stop time. And Philippe Pret now has to do this 128 seconds plus the regulation 14, and there into the lead of the race straight off goes Carlo Tamborini. Easy tick, goes through into the lead, 21 minutes to go, and that car will be absolutely out on its own now. There's nothing that's going to stop that, I can't believe. Tamborini turns his way up to turn 3 with a very, very dominant display. So Tamborini through. And that, off the road and with a puncture by the look of it, is 61. Ludovic Badet has taken over Mauro Ricci's Mercedes, and you can see it's low on a corner from the way that it's lurching around. But that's the second puncture of the race. Tyre off the rim, and Ludovic Badet crawling back. He's clearly been off the road as well because the gravel is still scattering, and that car hops its way to the pits. And it was a, oh dear, big lose coming towards turn 11 and 12 as the tyre went down. Off the road he went. Ludovic Badet, yeah, the tyre's off the rim there. Look, there's gravel everywhere, and so he limps on back towards the pit lane. What he wants to do is get the car back as quick as he can. He does not need any more damage to be done. So Carlo Tamborini in that final sector. Philippe Pret is about to be released. There is Tamborini, who's the race leader. It is going to be Jean-Luc Bobelic's Mercedes behind. And then Philippe Pret, with the extra 7 seconds to serve on the Mercedes, will be away in third place. And Carlo Tamborini, given that he is a pole position driver for one of the Ricard races and tomorrow's race, ain't going to be caught by Jean-Luc Bobelic, I wouldn't have expected, unless he makes a mistake. The Mercedes there coming down the pit lane. And the redoubtable Jean-Luc Bobelic ups his pace now, accelerates away. He's been a loyal Mercedes driver, whether it's been in GT4 or 3 or 2 for a number of years. There behind him is Pierre Caffer. Now, Caffer has done the fastest lap of the race. Can he unlap himself? Well, he might do from Bobelic, but I'm not sure he's going to catch Tamborini, but it won't be for the want of trying. But if he can get himself on the lead lap, that will be quite something. So Pierre Caffer needs to strike while Bobelic's getting himself up to speed here. Has a look on the inside line down at turn 8, can't do it. Philippe Pret, in the meantime, is back on track as well. And the track limit warnings for all cars have now been reset. So into the second part of the race, track limit warnings go to 0. Bobelic wide at 10. Now, on the one hand, he doesn't have to fight that Audi, but it's not in his best interest to let it by either. There is Carlo Tamborini, well clear now in the lead of the race. He's got 18 minutes on the clock, and he's out on his own. So Leonardo Guarini started, the former Porsche GT2 racer. Now Carlo Tamborini at the wheel, former touring car racer in the Italian Championship. He was in the Italian GT Championship, both sprint and endurance, last year. And now to GT2 machinery, as he keeps his name at the forefront. There is Pierre Caffer, so he has unlapped himself from Jean-Luc Bobelic, but he ain't going to catch the Maserati, is he? Caffer's best lap was a 35.4. That was slower because he was stuck behind the Mercedes. There is Philippe Pret third, but Pret in turn, look, under attack from Reinhard Koffler. So Philippe Pret, who is after a class win, and to do that he's got to get himself ahead of Jean-Luc Bobelic, but at the same time Reinhard Koffler wants to try to get up and pass to catch the Maserati of Tamborini. That's going to be a tall order given that the margin is 18.5 seconds, but Reinhard Koffler never gives up. Out of turn 6 he goes. Philippe Pret just up the road ahead of him, and 17 minutes of the race remain as they come down towards turn 8 now. So Tamborini's Maserati, Bobelic's Mercedes, Pret's Maserati, Koffler's KTM, Lerai's Maserati, and Heseman's Mercedes the top 6. Jörg Wiebahn's Mercedes is 7th, Angerhofer KTM 8th, Bure Mercedes 9th, Kreimer 10th KTM, and then Pierre Caffer in 11th place, but not on the lead lap, which is the big frustration for him, nor is Laura Kreimer either. That's Reinhard Koffler still pushing on and has a cheeky look on the inside of Philippe Pret. Pret is certainly catching Bobelic here for second place. So game on between those two. And as they come up towards turn 16, Philippe Pret needs to make a decision. Does he let Reinhard Koffler go? And then Koffler can also do something about Bobelic, or does he try to defend He doesn't really want to lose time racing against that KTM, but I think inevitably Koffler will get through before the end of the race. He's just that little bit quicker. Reinhard Koffler, what you might call a pro driver, as in a professional career racing driver. Philippe Pret, a very, very good am, and look how much closer Pret is to Boberlik as we look down from the drone. Goes to the inside line. Couldn't find a way through, but a mistake from Boberlik, and Pret gets past him. Koffler nearly gets past the pair of them as they come then now out of turn 6, side by side. Out wide goes Koffler, and he's back on the road, but he will have lost a little bit of time as a consequence of all of that. To the braking zone they come. Hard on the brakes, turn into the corner, and Pret stays ahead, but he's got the class lead in am. But Reinhard Koffler wants to get past him because he's in a different category. And actually, Pret might as well let him go. It's not in his interest to get delayed and get involved in a battle which might result in contact. To the curb on the inside line goes Koffler, and through he goes, picks up the pace, job done there. So nicely done. Reinhard Koffler up into second position now. Cars accelerate their way again down now into turn 12. As they do so, Reinhard Koffler now will start to edge away, I'm sure, of that battle pack behind him. And leaving therefore the AM class lead squabble to its remaining 15 minutes of the race. So that's Koffler going through. Now what can he do, if anything, about Tamborini? Now let's see what the gap is. Pierre Caffer, incidentally, still doing fastest lap after fastest lap. Tamborini is 21 seconds ahead of Koffler, although Koffler is lapping quicker. But it's going to take a big mistake or a safety car, I think, to really derail Tamborini's lead now with 14 minutes to go. But you never know. We've seen other cars have problems. Could yet happen. Koffler through, Pret through, and I think Pret, in turn, is getting away from Boberlik now. So that rather looks as though it sorted itself out in AM. A warning flag to Philippe Pret and a warning flag to Reinhard Koffler for driving standards. This was what happened up at 4. This was where Boberlik went wide. Pret got up the inside. Koffler on the inside of both of them. Took to the curb and went through. 3 wide of that part of the circuit. Underlined who the opportunist was, and that was Koffler. But then here, look, Pret didn't give him any room at all. Ran him out wide. And Reinhard Koffler had to jump his way back onto the circuit. But in the end, he got through. Coming out of turn 9. Through on the inside went Reinhard Koffler. Job done, place gained, good hard racing between those two, but race control saying it is meant to be a kind of gentlemanly category, so wind it in a bit. Ludovic Badet's Mercedes that we'd seen have a puncture has pitted but not gone back out. That's lost 6 laps now, so I rather fear there was more mechanical damage done by that incident, so that's kept him out of the race, and Jan Krabec never even did a lap, did he, having retired right at the very start. Reinhard Koffler through again. That's Pierre Caffer. He's 11th on the road and a lap down on the race leader, which is the real frustration for him because he can't really do very much now to get that car anywhere up the order. He's chasing after Lara Kreimer's KTM. That is Carlo Tamborini, who still leads, and because he's on his own, looks a bit serene, looked a bit slow there for a moment, almost made one panic, but he's pressing on. Alexandre Leroy, you've just seen, has lost a place to Loris Hezerman, so we've had a change of place there. And here, coming up towards the end of the lap once again, is the battle between Jörg Wiebahn in 888, and the KTM ahead of him is not on the same lap. That is the Anderson Birch car that's lost time early on. So the race leaders then on to lap 23. Carlo Tamborini's last lap was a 1:35.9. All he's got to do now is just keep out of trouble and, importantly, keep it between the white lines. He's had 1 track limit warning in this stint, but get up to 6 is when you need to panic. He's a little bit wide there coming out of turn 4, but all good for Carlo Tamborini. KTM up the road she will need to negotiate. Laura Kreimer's car, but Carlo Tamborini serenely through, ticking off the laps, all looking good. Pierre Caffer, another absolute best within the first sector, and 11 more minutes of the race on the clock. So Carlo Tamborini up towards turn 10. The Maserati, it's certainly been the car to have in qualifying, and looking mighty strong in race trim as well. This is the second place car then, Reinhard Koffler's KTM, pushing on. And then behind, Philippe Pret there in third position, but Pret's last lap was a little bit slower, so he is losing time, but he's keeping his class lead, and that really is what counts for Pret. You don't get points for your overall place, only for where you are in class. In the background is Jean-Luc Bobelic. He is the second-placed AM driver. And then behind that was Loris Hezemans in the orange and silver Mercedes, making his way into view, having passed Alexandre Leroy in sixth spot there in the Maserati. So Leroy in turn, I think he's well clear of Jörg Wiebahn. He's not going to be caught. The TFT racing car up towards turn 14 now, as Leroy accelerates into turn 15. Loris Hezemans up the road. Now, Hezemans versus Bobelic, 6.4 seconds the margin, and last time Hezemans fractionally quicker. So maybe a change for fourth place is possible before the end. Jean-Luc Bobelic goes by, Loris Hezemans goes by, 4.6 seconds the margin, and 1.8 seconds quicker Hezemans than Bobelic. So it could be on before the very end, 9 minutes away. That's Jörg Wiebahn, who was quick in qualifying earlier on, but having to bring that car up the order after the first stint of Stéphane Perrin. It's cost a bit of time. Jörg Wiebahn, very experienced GT4 racer, but now as GT4 has become very hectic, very competitive, enjoying his racing in GT2 with that very, very smart Mercedes that comes from the NM Racing stable. Same team that we've seen have a win today in GT4. There is a charging Klaus Angerhofer as well. Now Angerhofer is 5.4 seconds back on Wiebahn and lapping 4/10 quicker. So he's chipping away, even if he's not necessarily going to get there before the very end of the race. Angerhofer having taken over from Sedhi Samini. '53, 9th, Christophe Bouret. He's taken that car over from Pascal Gibon, and he's pushing on as well. That's another of the cars that runs within the AM class. So 6th in class, Christophe Bouret. He's a bit in no man's land there. He's not catching anybody particularly as the race leader goes through the shot, having now moved ahead to put a lap on Laura Kreimer's KTM. Now is Laura Kreimer therefore being caught by Pierre Caffer? Yeah, a bit. That gap's down to 10 seconds for 10th place. So there's a possibility that might change before the very end of the race here. Leaders down at turn 11. This is Carlo Tamborini then. 21 seconds he is clear of the opposition. Reinhard Koffler, having had to make up the time, not only lost in the first stint, but also on the pit stop, whereas Tamborini had no extra compensation to serve in the pits. It's all playing into the Maserati's hands. There's Pierre Caffer off the lead lap, but illustrating what that car can do, because he's done the fastest lap of the race, quicker than anybody else out there, even though the Audi is what you might call one of the older cars. I know GT2 is not that older category, but the Audi was built for the very first season, whereas the Maserati debuted last year. Tamborini on the lights that are getting brighter and brighter as the sun has almost set. He's down at turn 1. He's got 6 3/4 minutes to go. And still that traffic up the road needing to be factored in. It is Dennis Liebel in the KTM. Tamborini on the lights to make sure that the map marker has seen him, and he has done it, and he lets him go. So Carlo Tamborini through again out of turn 6. Pierre Caffer has just done another fastest lap of the race as the car gets lighter and lighter on fuel. There's just no stopping him at the minute. Number 1 goes through. Carlo Tamborini up now to turn 9. So you've got the 9 kink into turn 10. It looks like one long corner from that camera shot, but there's a little kink that just tees you up for the main corner, and then the speed building as you come all the way down, the autostrada in the distance, the big grandstands for that kind of final stadium section, all the way around the end of the lap, and big gravel traps are there as well. Carlo Tamborini then up towards turn 14, the hairpin, which is coming up now. There, the Mercedes with Hezemans ahead of Bobelik. That's the change that was predicted for 4th place, and it's happened relatively easily. So Loris Hezemans moves up. It doesn't affect Bobelik in class, but it does change the overall order. Loris Hezemans carrying on the Eric Dodonka work from the first stint, and to good effect as well, as over the line now goes Carlo Tamborini. Again, down towards turn 1. 5 more minutes to go. Flying lap is 1:36, so there's another 3 laps at least, I would have thought, for Tamborini here. Comes out of turns 4 and 5, flicks his way through 6, the drone shadowing him through the trees, and it gives you an idea of the real nature of the circuit here, not only in terms of what the track is like, but what's around it that you don't always see from the trackside cameras. Big bank on the inside there for motorbike fans to watch when MotoGP comes here. Great circuit for motorbike racing. And then the run up towards turn 9 and into turn 10 for Tamborini. But he's now making this look very easy indeed. Tomorrow, though, that car is going to have to serve an extra time penalty in the pits as a race winner. Getting a replay of how Hezemans got past Bobelik, coming up towards the hairpin, and job done. Through he went. Nicely done up at turn 4, and once through, Hezemans gets away. So Carlo Tamborini, still a dominant race leader, accelerates now towards turn 15. He can afford to back the pace off a little bit because he's got 21 seconds in hand over Reinhard Koffler. And the most important thing here, and we've seen a couple of cars have punctures, is to look after the machinery here, not stress it, not abuse the curbs at all. You can see how dirty the racetrack is now with gravel, with chunks of rubber littering it. It's been a really busy day at the Misano World Circuit. There going through is Reinhard Koffler. So this is the car in 2nd place, but it ain't for catching the Maserati. Too much time lost in the first stint and on that longer pit stop to allow Koffler a chance to come back. But it'll be yet more points, which are all good news for the championship. And a slightly shorter pit stop than Tamborini and Gorini's car tomorrow. Philippe Pret will just keep on gaining long stops by being a soloist, and a successful one in the AM category. He's going to take honours there again. 2nd win of the year, seemingly, and that Jean-Luc Bobelik now 5th on the road behind Hezemans, who's gone through, but he's still 2nd in his class ahead of Alexandre Leroy, and staying ahead of the Maserati, and he's 6 seconds to the good is important with less than 3 minutes to go now. Bobelik grabs a gear, accelerates along that back part of the circuit down towards turn 8, and as he does so in the first sector, a little bit slower than Alexandre Leroy, but he's got enough in hand, I would have thought, for that not to be an issue before the end. Philippe Pret, in the meantime, still looking good in his class. Class win beckons as he in turn now comes down to turn 12. Tamborini up the roads, well clear. Now, the last lap was a 1:35 for Tamborini, and we've got just under 2 minutes on the clock. But Tamborini has gone through already, so he will squeeze this lap and one more potentially out of the race now. Philippe Pret into turn 16. Again, he's in a similar situation to Tamborini. Don't make mistakes, don't stress the equipment, take the class win, take the points. So far, so good. Philippe, whose attention will switch in about an hour's time to what his son is up to, because Louis Pret, part of the Garage 59 McLaren team in Fanatec GT. So with GT2 supporting Fanatec GT at every event this year, it makes sense in a way for Philippe to do his racing in this. That's the change for 10th place. Lara Kreimer goes wide and Pierre Caffer goes ahead. So the KTM loses a place. I think Lara Kramer, to be fair, did make a little bit of a mistake. Went deep into the corner there, but up and past goes then Pierre Caffer. So that puts the Audi into the top 10, even if it ain't on the same lap as this car, which will be on its last lap very shortly, because Carlo Tamburini works his way past the gravel, up now towards turn 14, and looking oh so strong. It has been a really dominant display in this stint by Carlo Tamburini. Turns through onto the last lap of the race, half a minute on the clock, and through he goes. So Carlo Tamburini onto his last lap, makes the run into turn 1, and having been so careful of the machinery, will be so no doubt for one more lap of this 4.2 kilometre long circuit. Turns his way now with traffic ahead onto the straight to turn 8, and the traffic in fact is Christophe Bourret, who ran really wide there. Thankfully, as he totters back onto the road, doesn't get in the way of the leader, but that's the last thing Tamburini needs on the last lap, any sort of scare of a back marker doing anything slightly wayward, but Bourret got away with that. Tamburini, you can see straight past him, pulls away. Much is the disparity in pace between one of the young guns of GT racing, Carlo Tamburini, and a quick am in the person of Christophe Bourret. So Tamburini comes out of 10 and ticks the corners off now, up towards the end of the race, towards a second win of the year. And Carlo Tamburini for LP Racing, after a spell in Italian touring cars before he went to Italian GT racing last year, comes now up towards the end of the lap, towards the end of the race, towards another victory, and a great job done. It's going to be another outright win, and of course points in class for Carlo Tamburini. Out of 15, checkered flag at the ready, and the third race of the year in the Fanatec GT2 European Series goes the way of Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini. They win at Misano. Second towards the timing line is going to be Reinhard Koffler and Martin Koch. There is the KTM up towards the line. And as that car goes through, second outright, second in Pro-Am to Koch and Koffler. Third, and another win in Am. He's going to go the way of Philippe Pret. That is his second win of the season. For third overall, third in Pro-Am, fourth overall, Loris Hezemans and Eric Dodonka there, right on the tail of the Maserati at the end. The gap between them, 0.6 of a second. Second in the Am class, Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet, and then third, Alexandre Leroy in the Maserati behind. So Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini are the race winners. The margin, 21.8 seconds. Tomorrow might be a bit tougher in as much as they've got the longer pit stop to serve. Now there will be 10 seconds as a race-winning combination to have to factor in. Tamburini, arm out of the window on an easy in-lap. Pierre Caffer still pushing on. A man with the fastest lap of the race to his name. But confirmation, the race winners are Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini as the Maserati makes its way down towards the pit lane. And they didn't have darkness to contend with, but certainly into the onset of dusk, the circuit floodlights are now on. They're not making much of an effect yet, but in 45 minutes' time, the GT3 field will be underway, and then they might make more of an impact. So Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini, the race winners. And an incident between Koffler and Dennis Liebel and also Ludovic Bada is going to be investigated after the race. So something brewing in the system, possibly, that will have to be dealt with at the end. Right, a delighted LP Racing team greets Carlo Tamburini. Leonardo Guarini, having come into GT2 racing initially with Porsches, but having great success now with the Maserati. And Carlo Tamborini is there, joined by his co-driver. Door opens. Out steps Carlo, handshakes and a hug after an excellent performance by both. Bearing in mind they didn't have to serve any extra time in the pits and the opposition around did. It kind of flatters the win, but equally the pace was always there. Leonardo Guarini was running with the leaders from the start of the race and came within a whisker of taking pole position for the race anyway. Helmet off for Carlo Tamborini. Winner's cap. And we'll have a word with our two race winners. Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamborini are with Antonia.
Leonardo, Carlo, get your hats on. Congratulations. Wow, what a great day for you guys. Winners in brands and winners here. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, the whole team has been working really good. It's a team effort. Me and Leo do the rest. So yeah, it's really enjoyable to race with LP and Maserati. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we had a very good race, a good start. I had to stay a bit calm behind, but yeah, I'm just trying to.
Well, you guys couldn't physically ask for any more. You pulled a really good advantage there. I mean, the big question is, will you be able to repeat it tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it will be a bit tougher because of the pit stop handicap in seconds, but we will fight hard, and I think we have the speed to fight for the win also tomorrow. Let's hope so.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Go up and celebrate. Congratulations.
So the win, Paul Ricard and Misano, not brands, GT2 not there, of course, but second win of the year, anyway, just to clarify, for the LP Racing Maserati drivers. And a great effort by both of them. But as Carlo Tamborini quite rightly points out, tomorrow's race, when they will have that longer pit stop to serve, will potentially be a different story. So the drivers now will head to the podium. And the Misano circuit gets ready, because very shortly the pit lane is going to open to the GT3 field, with their race getting underway at 9 p.m. into the darkness, 1 hour sprint. It's been a real festival of GT racing, and a win earlier on in the day for Valentino Rossi and Maxime Martin in GT3, keeping the fans absolutely content. Leonardo Guarini, Carlo Tamborini win the first race of the weekend at the Misano World Circuit from Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler. Philippe Pret taking third and winning the AM Cup, with Eric de Doncker and Loris Hezemans fourth. Gilles Vannelet, Jean-Luc Boblique fifth, second AMS, sixth and third AM, Alexander Leroy. After that, there was Stefan Perron and Jörg Wiebahn ahead of Sedi Sarmany and Klaus Angerhofer, 9th Pascal Gibon and Christophe Bure, and 10th on the last lap, Michael Doppelmayr and Pierre Caffer, who was also the man that did the fastest lap of the race. And the Pro-Am Championship leader Jan Krabach out with a mechanical problem on the first lap. So spectacular shots overhead, and in the pit lane, the GT2 teams will retreat to the paddock and attend to their cars ready for tomorrow. As we wait for the podium, let's look at the highlights of race one, with a great getaway being made by Philippe Pret, but not as good as the elbows out Gilles Vannelet, who went barging up the inside, contact between the two, but that was just deemed to be hard racing at the first corner. Nothing came of it, no penalties flew, but there was an early safety car to retrieve Jan Krabach's KTM, so when the race got underway proper, it was the Mercedes in the lead. Pret chased after him, and it wasn't long before the Maserati made a dive on the inside and went through up at turn 4. Leonardo Guarini tried to find a way through, could not do so, but was in the mix as the pit window opened, and Carlo Tamborini left great big rubber lines on the ground as he blasted back into the race. And then there was this error from Jean-Luc Boblique. He ran wide. Also wide was Pret. Reinhard Koffler got up past both of them, or he thought he had, until he was ran out really wide by Pret coming out of turn 6. But eventually up at 9, it was job done. The KTM through on the inside of the Maserati. A good pass from Loris Hezemans, also up at turn 4, put him ahead of Jean-Luc Boblique, moving one Mercedes ahead of another, but a Pro-Am car ahead of an AM category car And while all that was going on, Carlo Tamborini was utterly dominant, unstoppable no less, on his way to a second win of the year with Leonardo Gorini. So another interesting race, and that gives Leonardo Gorini and Carlo Tamborini a 6-point advantage now over Koffler and Koch in the championship. The absent Matej Homela with Jan Krabec, who didn't score, are third. Podium beckons. Almost Rossi colours, aren't they, for Tamborini and Lego, Leonardo Gorini. Eric Dodonka saying, I've lost my co-driver. Where's Loris Hezemans gone to? But more drivers are on their way. I think Loris is there. Yes, he is. He's come forward. Gilles Vandelet and Jean-Luc Bobelic arrive on the scene. Jean-Luc uber cool with his sunnies on, as ever. So I think we are just about good. And it means that the first podium can be brought forward. And will we start with Pro-Am or Am? We'll find out in a moment, depending on who steps forward first. It will be the Pro-Ams, where Loris Hezemans and Eric Dodonka step forward. Eric Dodonka on the grid for the very first ever BPR GT race, from which SRO grew. And he and young gun Loris Hezemans take third in Pro-Am. Second will go the way, there they are, of Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler. KTM drivers taking second spot, but it's a win, the second of the year for LP Racing, represented on the podium and by the drivers Carlo Tamborini and Leonardo Gorini as they step forward to a great reception. All smiles, and certainly the Maserati giving Leonardo Gorini a chance to show how rapid he is. The Porsche was always there or thereabouts, but now the outright wins are coming. So for the Italian drivers and an Italian team, national anthem sounds around the Misano World Circuit. And now trophies presented, courtesy of Pirelli, tire supplier, of course, for GT2, GT3, GT4. Steve Rouse, the chief GT engineer for Pirelli, has the honour of handing the trophies there to nearest us, Reinhard Koffler, and the co-driver Martin Koch. The team's trophy presented, and then it will be for the winning drivers, to Lego, Leonardo Gorini, and to Carlo Tamborini, win number 2 of the season in Fanatec GT2 European Series. Now the drivers ponder whether they want to be soaked in champagne. Let's not, says Leonardo Gorini. Let's not get wet. So Eric Dodonka talked out of that, and although they pose for photographs, I don't think Leonardo Gorini is in the mood. Eric Dodonka is, but they'll head from the podium, and the podium can be made ready for the AMs next. Well done to Leonardo Gorini and Carlo Tamborini, winners at Paul Ricard, winners here as well. Another fine effort. And so as the drivers come off the podium, the AMs are ready. Loris Hezemans takes his crash helmet, walks away. And so third AM is Alexander Leroy, who is called forward there in the white and black and yellow overalls. Alexander Leroy up to the podium. Third place for the solo driver. Then for second, it is going to be Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vandelet. They took a win at Paul Ricard. They take second place here. And you can tell these are two people that absolutely love their racing. And then the winning AM, another solo effort and a second victory of the year and third overall to Philippe Pret for LP Racing, who makes his way onto the podium and a very happy man indeed he is. The GT2 drivers will be back on track tomorrow. They will be the first race of the day, so late today, early tomorrow. They'll blast off round about 9:15 for the second race of the weekend, and we'll see whether it's going to be another Maserati dominated race. For now, Philippe Pret celebrates his class win for the Italian LP racing team. Philippe Pret takes AM honours, and we will see you tomorrow for race 2 in Fanatec GT2 European Series.